We're Team Ocelots, and our topic was authentic learning. I'm Johanna Logan.
I'm Kristen Evans.
And I'm Hannah Tolbert. We're students in EDM 310 at the University of South Alabama. Authentic learning is not project-based learning or constructivism. Although these are useful, they are not authentic learning models. It does not need to be a theoretical event. We need to make it useful to students for them to be able to use them in everyday life. We don't want our students to be asking us, are we going to be using these in the future? We want to be successful in creating real-life events.
Authentic learning, according to Stephen Revington, is a real-life learning situation, a style of learning that encourages students to create a tangible, useful product to be shared with others throughout the world. Authentic learning engages all the senses, allowing students to create a meaningful, useful, shared outcome.
According to Audrey Rule, the audience beyond the classroom changes the problem from an exercise to something more important, allowing students to become emotional stakeholders in the problem. I remember trying to memorize all the definitions and problems simply to get the problems right. With authentic learning, we are giving students real-life experiences for them to retain the knowledge better.
What does authentic learning mean to you?
To me, authentic learning means using real-world problems in the classroom. Kind of where like the teacher can use complex situations and role play to help the students find their solution. Do you think it's realistic that authentic learning can be taught in the classroom?
Maybe one day, but realistically, no, not right now. With the standardized testing demands, the limitations in the classrooms, administrative directors, teachers are too focused on test scores to implement authentic learning in their classrooms. Will you use authentic learning in your classroom?
I'd like to think so, just because I think there's no need in the 21st century for any problem or area of study to be totally made up, or to even be totally from the past or about the past, or to be unconnected to the present or future real lives of our students. There's just so many things and ways out there to make connections to their lives and passions that we need to find and use.
As higher education and job requirements become more competitive, complex, and technical, proponents argue that students will need these kinds of skills that authentic learning experiences can provide for them to successfully navigate the modern world, excel in challenging careers, and process increasingly complex information.
Authentic learning says that we should learn what happens in the real world and become cognitive apprentices to the experts. We as teachers need to remember that in a true authentic learning outcome, an outcome designed to interact successfully with the community is the goal. How do you plan on motivating your students through authentic learning?
By helping them solve real world problems, they would rather learn by doing rather than listening, even though most educators consider learning by doing the most effective way to learn.
Why is authentic learning important to you?
I think authentic learning and authentic tasks are important because it helps provide meaningful and motivation for learning to students. It helps the students with opportunities to relate real world situations and make connections with their own lives and interests and engage more deeply in the subject rather than the teacher just standing there and teaching. What makes authentic learning effective to you?
To me, authentic learning makes information more meaningful and interesting to the students, rather than the students just sitting there and listening to a teacher lecture all day in a classroom. They can actually be introduced to a real world problem and be able to figure it out on their own, which to me would help them be more involved in the classroom lesson.
An authentic way to teach the scientific method, for example, would be to ask students to develop a hypothesis about how ecosystems work that is based on first-hand observations of a local natural habitat, then have them design and conduct an experiment to prove or disprove the hypothesis. After the experiment is completed, students might then write up, present, and defend their findings to an actual panel of scientists. In contrast, a less authentic way to teach the scientific method would be to have students read about the concepts in a textbook, memorize the prescribed process, then take a multiple choice test to determine how well they remember it.
As quoted by Ben Franklin, "Tell me and I forget, Teach me, and I may remember. Involve me, and I will understand.